Okay, everybody, sorry about the delay. So this is our second part of a virtual tabling series, and also our second time doing this. So we're just trying to work out the technical kinks and things like that. So this is our presentation on cardiovascular disease prevention. So under the umbrella of cardiovascular disease is high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So my name is Rainer Puzzle. I'm a community health worker here. Normally, Nico Alamo, the other community health worker, would be presenting with me, but he's out of the office today. And our other community health worker, Jessica Martinez, will pop in next time, but she's also in the garden today. So here we go. So first off, what is high blood pressure? High blood pressure, or the medical term hypertension, is the force of blood pushing against the walls of your arteries. High blood pressure means that the force pushing against the wall of your arteries is higher than it should be. So blood pressure is measured in two numbers, with systolic on top and the diastolic on bottom. The systolic pressure is the pressure in the artery when the heart is beating, and the diastolic is the pressure in the artery when the heart is at rest. So if your blood pressure is 130 over 80, the 130 is the systolic and the 80 is the diastolic. So when the doctor or the nurse or whoever is taking your blood pressure gives you that number, that's what that means. So the top number is the pressure in the artery when the heart is beating, and the bottom number is the pressure in the artery when the heart is at rest. So when they give you your number, if it falls into a certain category, you might be placed into a normal blood pressure, an elevated blood pressure, a high blood pressure, or hypertension stage 1, high blood pressure, hypertension stage 2, or you might be in a hypertensive crisis. So if your top number is less than 120, it's normal. If it's 120 to 129, it's considered elevated. 130 to 139 is considered high blood pressure, hypertension stage 1. 140 or higher is hypertension stage 2. And then higher than 180, you should consult your doctor immediately or go to the emergency room. So a question you may be asking, okay, high blood pressure, but why is it such a bad thing? If the pressure in your arteries is too high, it can cause the edges of your arteries to flake. This allows cholesterol, which is a type of fat basically, to get stuck on the edges of your arteries. This can cause narrowing and eventually blockages in the artery, leading to heart attacks and stroke. Also, the narrowing itself can increase your blood pressure because there's less volume in the artery, and that will cause the blood to flow faster and increasing the pressure. Also, the repeated high pressure can cause small arteries to burst, leading to a highly dangerous leak called an aneurysm. And these can happen in a lot of places, but they're most common in the brain because those arteries are very sensitive in there and more likely to burst. And those also can cause stroke, and you can have permanent brain damage. So it's really important to watch your blood pressure because it's very damaging on your body. But the good side is that blood pressure, high blood pressure, is totally preventable and it's totally treatable. It's just checking to make sure it's at where it needs to be. So who has high blood pressure? You probably may be thinking, oh, I don't need to worry about this. But actually, half of people over age 20 have high blood pressure. So everybody's at risk. And a lot of people are actually pre-hypertensive. And it's okay. It's very common. We live stressful lifestyles. The American diet is really high in sodium. So it's easy to have high blood pressure. It's not a representation of personal failings or anything like that. It's just the way we live these days. I mean, with half of people over age 20, you think 20 would be very young to have high blood pressure, but a lot of young people actually have it. It's just the nature of our world these days. often people don't know that they have high blood pressure, and there's often no signs and symptoms. This is why it's called the silent killer. And it's important to get regularly screened so that you can make changes to your lifestyle and control it, or begin treatment as soon as possible to avoid damaging your body. So some people are at higher risk for high blood pressure than others. These include tobacco users or those who are exposed to secondhand smoke, people who are obese or overweight, those who have high cholesterol, those who have an unhealthy diet high in sodium, those people who drink excessive amounts of alcohol, and those who do not exercise. Additionally, race, gender, family history, and stress associated with living in poverty can also increase risk of high blood pressure. Stress in general, if you have a high stress job, which is a lot of us, can increase your risk of high blood pressure. Or things are stressful at home, it can increase your risk of blood pressure. And also students experiencing stress, or anybody who is experiencing stress, increases the risk for high blood pressure. Native Americans specifically are 10% more likely than white adults to have high blood pressure. So this may be a little scary, knowing that over half of people over 20 have high blood pressure, and a lot of us are at risk for high blood pressure, but there's actually a lot of ways to prevent getting high blood pressure. So that can include a healthy diet that is low in sodium and has enough potassium. So sodium draws water into the bloodstream and increases the volume of the blood, and therefore increases the pressure. Potassium does the opposite. It has to do with balancing the electrolytes. So potassium will cause a decrease in blood pressure. So eating enough potassium is really important for maintaining good blood pressure, because it keeps your electrolytes balanced and can help actually lower your blood pressure. And potassium's in a lot of things. Ones that I can think of specifically are green vegetables and dairy products. So making sure you're getting enough of those. Another way you can prevent high blood pressure is exercising regularly, at least 2.5 hours of moderate intensity exercise per week, or 1 hour and 15 minutes of intense exercise. So moderate intensity is kind of where you're breaking a sweat, but you can still talk. Whereas intense exercises, it's so intense that you're not able to carry on a conversation. The exercise will also play into maintaining a healthy weight through diet and exercise. So watching your calories and making sure you're burning more calories, or maintaining, you're burning as many calories as you're taking in. Limiting alcohol consumption can help prevent high blood pressure. Quitting smoking, as well as managing stress and getting enough sleep. These are a big one, I think, for people everywhere. Everyone's stressed out. So just learning some stress management techniques. Next week, we'll probably go over some stress management and sleep tips for trying to balance things and also preventing high blood pressure. You can also talk to your provider about getting resources to help you prevent getting high blood pressure. So, for example, meeting with a healthy living coach or a dietitian, or maybe even if you do have hypertension, a medication, but then incorporating some prevention techniques so you can get off of medication. So what if I already have high blood pressure? If you already have high blood pressure, you can control it in the same ways as it's prevented. So diet and exercise, getting enough sleep, managing stress can all help you control your blood pressure if you already have hypertension. In addition, you want to make sure that you're taking medication as prescribed by your doctor. For some people, making healthy changes in their lifestyle allows them to stop taking their medication completely. So we're moving on to cholesterol, which is another big component of cardiovascular health. Hypertension and cholesterol kind of go hand in hand because they can damage the cardiovascular system and cause all sorts of things, including increasing risk of stroke, of aneurysm, of heart attacks, all things like that. So they go kind of hand in hand with each other. So cholesterol, if you're not aware of what it is a fat-like substance. It's not totally a fat, but I think it's most like a fat. It kind of has other things attached to it that doesn't make it a fat. And it's derived from animals. So we have cholesterol in our cells and other animals do too. And including things like dairy or eggs, all things that come from animals have cholesterol in them. And it's actually not a bad thing in good amounts. It's essential and our body uses it for many internal processes. However, if we eat too much cholesterol, it can build up in our arteries and give us problems. So there are actually two main types of cholesterol. There's quite a few different types, but for the purposes of our presentation, we're not going to go over those. So the two main types are LDL, or low density lipoprotein, which can be called bad cholesterol. And this type of cholesterol builds up in the arteries. HDL, or high density lipoprotein, is called good cholesterol because it binds to LDL and helps remove it from the body, or it helps our body use the LDL efficiently. LDL is used by the body, but in our Western diet, we tend to eat a lot of meat and we have usually too much LDL in our system and often not enough HDL due to the American diet. In some cultures, like the Mediterranean cultures, like Italy and Greece, for example, their food does have a lot of naturally occurring HDL. So a lot of people have known to try the Mediterranean diet here in order to increase their good cholesterol. So what products contain cholesterol? Any products derived from animals, including meat, seafood, poultry, eggs, and dairy products. So this often includes a lot of processed foods, including bacon or fried chicken, pizza, burgers, potato chips, cheese, hot dogs, anything that's kind of processed and contains a dairy or a meat product, or even is fried in things such as lard, and often food that we get at a restaurant, or if we make fatty foods at home, they often contain cholesterol. So why is having high cholesterol a bad thing? If there's an excess amount of cholesterol in the arteries, it builds up inside. It can cause a narrowing of the artery. This can decrease the amount of blood that can pass through. So if you can see in the figure here, in the image here, the cholesterol is building up in the inside of the artery and causing a restriction or a closing of the artery. And then blood can't pass through. And if blood can't pass through, this actually increases your blood pressure because the blood is going to move a little faster through the part that is pinched off. Also, if you have too much cholesterol, you can have an occlusion, which is basically when the blood flow gets closed off totally. And this is when we get heart attacks and strokes because the arteries in the brain and the heart aren't getting enough blood due to the cholesterol building up inside of the artery. And that causes the brain or heart or even other parts of the body to not get enough oxygen, and then the tissues start to die. Like I said previously, this process can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, and blood pressure that can permanently damage your body. So this is a little example of occlusions, they're called, or cholesterol filling in the arteries and closing them off. There's phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Phase 2, I feel many people have phase 2 and it can be managed. But when we start getting into phase 3 and 4, you're going to start seeing some side effects, including increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And often, if you're in phase 3 or 4, they have to go in for surgery and put in a stent, which is kind of like a little piece, a little cut out of a straw, I would say it's similar to, and they put that in the artery to open it up. or they have machines that can go in there and kind of drill out the cholesterol. So who's at risk for high cholesterol? People with diabetes and those who are obese are at a higher risk of having high cholesterol. People who eat diets high in saturated and trans fat are at an increased risk of getting high cholesterol, as well as those who do not exercise regularly. Smoking also increases your risk of having high cholesterol. And for some people, they have a genetically susceptible system, and it has to do really nothing with what we're eating, but it's called familial hypocholesterolemia. And this just means that your body naturally accumulates more cholesterol even with proper diet and exercise. And then I think familial, as I'm aware of, it's actually quite common, this genetic susceptibility, more common than we think. And as we age, your risk of getting high cholesterol increases as well because your body doesn't process the cholesterol as efficiently. So what can I do to prevent high cholesterol? So you can decrease consumption of foods with a lot of saturated and trans fat. And this includes a lot of fast foods, including McDonald's or gas station foods, fried chicken, French fries, things that are fried, contain a lot of trans fat. Commercial bakery, like things found in grocery stores, such as donuts and other types of breads, contain trans fat because they increase the shelf life. And when you fry food, it actually creates trans fat, even if you're using a saturated or unsaturated cooking oil. So you have to be careful with frying and doing it in moderation. So then here's a little graphic explaining the type of fats. So saturated fats are derived largely from animal products like meat, dairy, and eggs, but also plant-based sources. So an example includes coconut oil, eggs, and meat. And it is an essential fat, but we often eat too much of it. And there are divided opinions on whether it can be harmful or beneficial. But like anything, it's good in moderation, I would say. But often we get too much of it, just way too much of it in the American diet. And then the next fat is trans fats, which are used to extend the shelf life of processed foods and no longer recognized as safe by the FDA. And apparently over 1 or 2 grams of trans fat, even just that amount can be very detrimental or very bad for our health. And like I said before, trans fats are often found in fast food or processed foods like cookies and donuts that are sold in the grocery store to extend their shelf lives. Also, mayonnaise is a big one as well. And then we have unsaturated fats, and these are often liquid at room temperature. And these are derived from vegetables and plants, and they're comprised of monosaturated fats like avocados, olives, and nuts, and polyunsaturated fats like in sesame oil, as well as omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in foods like salmon. And these fats generally contain the HDL, or the high density lipoprotein, or the good cholesterol, or they help improve our good cholesterol. So here's another little infographic. It's just saying that trans fats are man-made and both are non-essential fats. The US banned trans fats in June 2018. So they can't be added into foods, but the frying process often makes trans fats. So by frying foods, even if they don't add them to increase the shelf life of the food, they're gonna have them in them because the food has been fried. And previously, the saturated fat is in butter, cheese, red meat, pork, baked foods, milk, and coconut oil. And then unsaturated fat in avocado, flax, walnuts, sea vegetables like seaweed, hemp seeds, chia, and olives. And unsaturated fats have omega-6 in addition to omega-3, and they're the only fats we need from our diet. And these can be found in seeds, nuts, beans, sea veggies, and some species of fish like salmon. And like I said previously, if we want to lower our cholesterol, we can increase our consumption of good cholesterol, which keeps our LDL or bad cholesterol in check. And here's an example of foods like pecans. These are pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, olive oil, avocados, walnuts, salmon, peanuts. Actually, peanut butter is a good source of good cholesterol, but you have to be careful because it's very calorie dense, so you don't want to eat too much. And also be careful for the sugar. I know that you can buy natural peanut butter now and it doesn't have as much sugar, but I am finding that even the natural ones has added sugar, and it's often just as much as the sweet peanut butter. So just make sure you're checking the labels on that when you go to the store. So another way we can prevent high cholesterol is increasing soluble fiber intake. And soluble fiber helps bind cholesterol in the digestive system, and that way they're not absorbed into the bloodstream. And some examples of soluble fiber include barley, oats like oatmeal or oatmeal desserts, beans. Beans are a really good one and full of soluble fiber, figs, prunes, and sweet potatoes. And sweet potatoes are even help you manage blood sugar. So they're kind of like a superfood, I would say, because they have a lot of fiber, help you with cholesterol, and they can keep your blood glucose from spiking. Another way to prevent high cholesterol is using heart-healthy fats when preparing food. So when cooking, try to use oils that are low in saturated fatty acids and high in monosaturated fatty acids. So these include olive, safflower, sunflower, and avocado oils. And this little chart here shows the oils with the highest saturated fatty acids. So peanut oil is kind of not too high in saturated fatty acids, but not too low either. So I wouldn't use it that much. Soybean oil is present in vegetable oil. It's a large component of like a vegetable oil mix, and it does have a bit of saturated fatty acid, but generally it does have mono unsaturated and polyunsaturated. But if you're cooking and you're trying to prevent cholesterol, I would recommend something like a canola or a sunflower oil or avocado oil or olive oil, because these have a lot of the monosaturated fatty acids that will help raise your HDL. So instead of frying, try to bake or grill. The process of frying turns natural fats in your food into unhealthy trans fats, as well as adds many unnecessary calories to your food. Grilling or baking can reduce the amount of oil needed to make your food and has less trans fats. Baking is also a way to make a large amount in meal prep for the week ahead. So what I do is I kind of pick a meal and plan it for 3 days, and then pick another meal and plan it for the other 2 days, and do a big batch. So a batch of baked chicken or baked asparagus, and then I have little containers and I'll package it up. And it's a good way to eat healthy and stay on track and save time if you're a really busy person. And I think it's a good way for me to manage my diet is by meal prepping and staying healthy. So I would recommend it to people, and you can look up all kinds of recipes for meal prep, and you can make all types of good food. And healthy food doesn't have to taste bad. You just have to kind of learn different ways of flavoring that are not adding so much salt or flavoring by frying the food. But it just takes practice. But as soon as you get the hang of it, you'll be in good way. So another way to prevent high cholesterol is exercise. Exercise increases the amount of cholesterol used by your body, and therefore reduces the amount that is present in the blood. So it actually helps put cholesterol into your cells so they're not inside the bloodstream. And if you're new to exercising, try and build up to make your goals more achievable. You want to start small and work your way up. So if you're not used to exercising, just kind of set a small goal and try and stick to that goal. So if you're not used to exercising and you want to start walking, say you're going to walk the block 3 times a week. or even 1 time a week. So your goal starting out is, I'm gonna go around the block once a week. So then every week try and go around the block. And if you're able to do it, perhaps increase your goal. I'm gonna go around the block 3 times a week. And then maybe after you get the hang of that, go up to 4 times a week. Or you could increase your intensity and go up to 2 blocks or 3 blocks. And then just kind of starting out small to make it realistic for you and not overwhelming yourself. Just taking baby steps to make it a habit. And once it becomes a habit, it's easier for you to do it every day and not feel so overwhelmed. So another way to prevent cholesterol, high cholesterol, is stop smoking and decrease alcohol intake. So cigarettes and alcohol can cause inflammation in the body. It can lead to a higher level of cholesterol in the blood. By stopping smoking and reducing alcohol intake, you can reduce the amount of cholesterol that ends up in your arteries. So alcohol and cigarettes, they really don't know what causes it besides the inflammation. So smoking and drinking alcohol causes inflammation inside of your body, and that kind of tends to make cholesterol stick into your arteries more. They had to do more research on it, but I guess that's the explanation that experts have right now, is that it's very inflammatory, those things, and it causes a buildup more than if you would not smoke or if you would not drink. So when you go in for a physical, they'll probably run a lipid panel, and a non-fasting lipid panel would be a total cholesterol. And that's when you would go in and they would just run a test and you wouldn't have to fast. And a total cholesterol includes all the types of cholesterol, the LDL, the HDL, and also triglycerides, which is a different type of fat that can increase your risk of heart disease and things like that. For total cholesterol, you want it below 200 milligrams per deciliter. So below 200 is good. If it's at 200 to 239, it's borderline high, and then above 240 is high cholesterol. So if you run a fasting blood panel, they're going to check all the separate types of cholesterol separately. So that will include the LDL and the HDL as well as the triglycerides. And I forgot to include the triglycerides in here. I can do that for next time, but we'll just talk about the LDL and HDL today. So if your LDL is less than 100, you have good cholesterol. If it's between 100 and 129, it's considered satisfactory or pretty good. 130 to 159 is borderline high. 160 to 189 is considered high, and above 190 is very high. So HDL, instead of wanting it low, you want HDL higher. So you want your LDL low and you want your HDL high. So if your HDL is less than 40 milligrams per deciliter, you're at high risk for heart disease. If it's 40 to 59, it's getting better, the higher the better, and above 60 is protective against heart disease. So what if you already have high cholesterol? If you already have high cholesterol, you can control it in the same ways as it's preventing: stopping smoking, limiting drinking, exercising, trying not to fry foods or eat as many fried foods, watching saturated fat intake, trans fat intake, trying to get good cholesterol by eating healthy oils that occur in fish and avocado and olive oil, things like that. And in addition, you want to make sure that you're taking medication as prescribed by your doctor. And for some people, making healthy changes in their lifestyle allows them to stop taking their medication completely. And then just to conclude, we have resources here at GLIIHC to help you prevent or manage your cardiovascular health. We have a dietitian, Lauren Rendino, and you can call and make an appointment with her, and she can help you kind of set up a diet plan or educate you further on what are good fats and bad fats and foods that have fats in them, or even maybe setting up a meal plan for you that can be helpful for you to stay on track. We have a gym open to all of our patients, and it's open during our business hours, and a fitness coordinator, Jason Raymond. And I know he does one-on-one, and I think you can call to schedule a consultation with him. We're currently closed though due to the COVID pandemic, but once the clinic and things start to calm down, our gym, of course, will be open again, and that resource will be available. And in the near future, the community health workers will begin coaching and case management. So kind of what I'm doing right now, but on a personal level, and kind of linking you to care, including Lauren and Jason, the dietitian and fitness coordinator, and also with your provider, if you have a provider. And coming soon, we'll be having a virtual heart disease prevention class offered. Hopefully soon it will be in person, but we're hoping the virtual will help people have greater access to a heart disease prevention class. And like I said previously, the CHWs are going to start doing virtual coaching and case management for you guys. We haven't set that up yet, but we're working on it. We're kind of rolling with the punches here and trying to get things virtual so it's accessible to everybody during these times. And I hope everybody is staying safe and taking care of themselves, managing stress, self-care, doing meditations, reading, taking time out of your day just to do things that you like and just to de-stress. And that's important right now because everything is going on right now in between the police brutality and the protests, and as well as the coronavirus pandemic, which is still raging on. So just want everybody to make sure that they're taking care of themselves. We're going to be doing our virtual tabling every week, Monday and Thursday. So Mondays are the pre-diabetes presentations, and Thursdays will be the cardiovascular. And thank you for watching today, and I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.